I am Emma Turner, 33 years old, working as a senior software engineer in Boston. Life has been going well professionally, but family relationships. That's complicated. Since my parents divorced 15 years ago, things with my dad and his new wife have been tense at best. My half-brother Tyler is graduating college soon, something I should be happy about. Then came that phone call. Dad demanded I contribute $3,500 to Tyler's graduation party. What happened next still leaves me shaken. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from today? Hit that subscribe button and join me as I explain how standing my ground changed everything in ways I never expected. Growing up, I had what most would call a normal childhood. Mom and Dad seemed happy enough, and our home in suburban Pennsylvania was filled with weekend barbecues, game nights, and the occasional family vacation to the Jersey Shore. Dad worked as an accountant while Mom taught elementary school. They weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. I have fond memories of Dad teaching me to ride a bike, helping with math homework, and our special Saturday morning pancake tradition. Everything changed when I turned 18. The arguments between my parents had been increasing for months, but nothing prepared me for coming home from high school one day to find Mom crying at the kitchen table with divorce papers. Dad had met someone else, Stephanie, a receptionist at his accounting firm. She was 10 years younger than him, and apparently made him feel alive again, according to the note he left. The divorce was messy and quick. Within 6 months, Dad and Stephanie were married, and I was left trying to comfort Mom while processing my own feelings of abandonment. What hurt most wasn't just the divorce itself, but how quickly Dad seemed to replace our family with a new one. From the first time I met her, Stephanie made it clear I wasn't welcome in their new life. She would make subtle comments about my appearance, question my college choices, and somehow always managed to schedule important events when I was supposed to visit Dad. Her fake smile never reached her eyes when I was around. When I was 20, Tyler was born. I still remember visiting the hospital awkwardly holding my half-brother, while Stephanie watched me like a hawk, as if I might somehow harm her precious baby. Dad was beaming with pride, in a way I couldn't remember him ever looking at me. As Tyler grew, the distance between Dad and me expanded. My phone calls went unanswered for days. Invitations to visit became less frequent. When I did visit, conversations revolved around Tyler's achievements, Stephanie's community involvement, or Dad's promotion. My college struggles, internship successes, or personal challenges rarely warranted more than a passing, "That's nice, Emma." With no financial support from either parent, I worked 2 jobs while attending state college. Mom wanted to help, but was struggling herself, having to restart her career and life after 20 years of marriage. I lived on ramen noodles, shared a cramped apartment with 3 roommates, and pulled all-nighters to maintain my scholarship, while working enough hours to cover rent and books. Those years taught me independence and resilience. I graduated with a computer science degree, earning honors despite all the obstacles. Neither Dad nor Stephanie attended my graduation. They sent a generic card with a $50 gift card inside, claiming Tyler had a little league game that couldn't be missed. After graduation, I clawed my way up from entry-level programmer to senior software engineer. Each promotion came from long hours, continuous learning, and determination to prove I could succeed, despite feeling like a family failure. Boston became my home, partly because the tech industry there offered opportunities, but also because the 300-mile distance from Dad and Stephanie provided necessary emotional space. Our relationship settled into an uncomfortable pattern of holiday phone calls and obligatory birthday messages. I'd see them at Thanksgiving some years, making awkward conversation, while Stephanie dominated discussions with stories of Tyler's achievements and her social circle. Dad would occasionally ask surface-level questions about my job, but never seemed to truly listen to my answers. Despite the strained relationship with my father and stepmother, I tried to establish some connection with Tyler. He seemed like a good kid, bright and polite, though clearly spoiled by his parents' attention. On his birthdays, I'd send thoughtful gifts and cards. During rare visits, I'd try to engage him about his interests, whether it was dinosaurs during his elementary years or basketball in middle school. These moments were precious but brief, always under Stephanie's watchful eye. Sometimes I'd catch Tyler looking at me curiously, perhaps wondering about this half-sister who appeared occasionally like a visiting relative rather than family. I wondered what stories they told him about me when I wasn't there. Did they mention me at all? Did he know how hard I had worked to build my life? Or was I just the absent daughter who abandoned the family, as Stephanie once implied during a particularly tense Christmas dinner? Through all these years, I maintained the relationship out of a sense of duty and the faint hope that someday, somehow, Dad might see me as a priority again. That fragile hope was about to be tested in ways I never imagined. It was a typical Sunday evening in April. I had just finished meal prepping for the week and was settling down with a glass of wine and the latest episode of my favorite crime podcast when my phone lit up with Dad's name. This was unusual. Our communications generally followed a predictable pattern of holiday calls and the occasional text message about family events. A random Sunday evening call was outside our established routine. "Hello," I answered, curious but cautious. "Emma, how are you doing?" Dad's voice had that artificially upbeat tone he used when he wanted something. After years of disappointment, I'd learned to recognize the signs. "I'm fine, Dad. Just winding down before the work week. Is everything okay?" I kept my voice neutral, though my guard was already up. "Everything's great, better than great, actually. Tyler is graduating next month from State University. Can you believe it? Seems like just yesterday he was starting kindergarten." I swallowed the immediate thought that Dad had never once expressed similar wonder at my own educational milestones. "That's wonderful. Congratulations to Tyler. Business administration, right? Marketing, actually. You'd know that if you visited more often." The passive-aggressive jab was delivered with a chuckle, as if it were just good-natured teasing rather than a guilt trip. "Anyway, Stephanie and I are planning a big celebration for him. He's the first person in Stephanie's family to get a college degree, you know." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to remind him that I had not only earned my bachelor's degree, but had done so with honors and without parental support. "That sounds nice. When's the party?" "The weekend after graduation. We're renting the banquet hall at the Riverside Country Club. It's going to be quite the event. About 100 people. Stephanie's whole family is coming, plus Tyler's friends, our neighbors, my colleagues." As Dad continued listing the extensive guest list, a sense of foreboding crept over me. This level of detail about party planning wasn't typical of our conversations. There was an agenda here. "Sounds like you're going all out," I commented when he finally paused for breath. "Well, it's an important milestone, and that's actually why I'm calling Emma." His voice shifted to what I recognized as his business tone. "We're putting together the final budget for everything, and it's adding up quickly. The venue, catering, DJ, decorations, photographer." My stomach tightened as I began to see where this was heading. "Since you're doing so well with your fancy tech job in Boston, we thought you might want to contribute to your brother's special day. We're asking for $3,500. The amount hit me like a physical blow, not a request to chip in or an invitation to contribute what I could afford. A specific, substantial sum stated as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. $3,500. I repeated, certain I must have misheard. "That's right. It would cover the catering costs. Stephanie found this amazing place that does a gourmet buffet. Tyler deserves the best, don't you think?" I sat in stunned silence, trying to process not just the amount, but the entitlement behind it. My mind raced through the implications. That sum represented a significant portion of my monthly income after taxes, retirement contributions, and my mortgage payment on the modest condo I had just purchased after years of saving. "Dad, that's a lot of money," I finally managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Well, Emma family helps family. You're doing well financially, and this is important. I helped you out plenty when you were growing up." This revisionist history was breathtaking. I had put myself through college with zero financial support from him. But before I could formulate a response, I heard shuffling on the other end of the line. "Emma, it's Stephanie." My stepmother's voice oozed with false warmth. "How are you, dear? It's been so long since we've seen you." "Hi, Stephanie. Dad just told me about the graduation party plans." "Yes, it's going to be wonderful. Tyler is so excited. You know, as his only sibling, it would mean so much if you played a special role in celebrating his achievement." The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost insulting. In 13 years, Stephanie had never once referred to me as Tyler's sibling, let alone emphasized our relationship. I understand it's an important day, I said carefully, but $3,500 is a significant amount. I just bought my first condo, and the expenses with that have been substantial. Oh, but surely your tech company pays you well. Your father mentions your success all the time. The implication that I was being selfish hung in the air. My job does pay well, but I have financial responsibilities too. I tried to keep the defensiveness out of my voice. Well, family should be a financial responsibility too, Emma. Stephanie's tone hardened slightly. Tyler looked up to you, you know, even though you're rarely around. The guilt trip was expertly deployed, hitting all my insecurities about our fragmented family. I realized with growing clarity that this call had been planned. They had discussed this before calling, strategizing how to approach me, perhaps even rehearsing responses to my potential objections. I need some time to think about this, I said finally, unwilling to commit to either a yes or a no, while my emotions were so raw. Don't take too long, Dad said, having apparently reclaimed the phone. The caterer needs a deposit by the end of the week. I'll call you back in a couple of days. I promised needing to end this conversation before I said something I might regret. After hanging up, I sat motionless on my couch, the crime podcast forgotten as a much more personal mystery unfolded. How had I become the family ATM, rather than a daughter or sister? And what was I going to do about it? After the phone call ended, I sat frozen on my couch, wine glass, forgotten in my hand, mind spinning with a whirlwind of emotions. The audacity of the request left me breathless. $3,500. Not a small contribution, not whatever you can manage, but a specific substantial amount demanded as if it were my obligation. Anger came first, hot and sudden. I paced my living room, mentally cataloging all the milestones in my life that Dad and Stephanie had minimized or missed entirely. My college graduation celebrated with a group of friends at a pizza place because neither parent could afford a proper celebration. My first job offer, which I called to share with Dad, only to have him cut the conversation short because they were heading to Tyler's soccer game. The promotion to senior engineer 3 years ago, acknowledged with a text message saying, "Congrats, kiddo," 2 days after I shared the news. Then came the hurt, deeper and more painful than the anger. Despite everything, some childish part of me still craved my father's approval and love. That little girl who once sat on his shoulders at the county fair still existed somewhere inside me, hoping that someday he would see me, truly see me, and be proud. But this call confirmed what I had suspected for years. I was an afterthought in his life, valuable only when I could provide something. Memories of my college years flooded back, sharp and vivid. The evenings working at the campus coffee shop until midnight, then staying up until 3 a.m. to finish programming assignments. The summer I lived on a friend's couch because I couldn't afford both summer classes and rent. The time I got sick with pneumonia and had to beg my professor for an extension because I couldn't afford to lose my scholarship if my grades slipped. During those years, my calls to Dad became increasingly infrequent, as they so often ended with me feeling worse than before. He'd tell me about the family vacation they were planning, or the new car he bought Stephanie while I was calculating if I could afford both textbooks and food that month. I picked up my phone and called the one person who had been my rock through all of this, my best friend Jasmine. "They asked you for what?" Jasmine's indignation crackled through the phone after I explained the situation. "Are they serious? After everything, they have the nerve to ask you for $3,500. Dead serious. They've already planned this elaborate party, and now they're expecting me to foot a major part of the bill." My voice sounded small even to my own ears. "Emma, honey, you don't owe them anything. Not a single penny. Where were they when you were struggling through college? Where was your fancy graduation party?" There wasn't one. I reminded her, the old wound still tender. Mom took me out for dinner at Olive Garden. It was all she could afford after the divorce. Exactly my point. And now they're throwing some extravagant country club bash for Tyler and expecting you to pay for it? Absolutely not. Tell them to kick rocks. I laughed despite myself at Jasmine's characteristic bluntness. It's not that simple, Jazz. Why not? Seems pretty straightforward to me. They're taking advantage of you. If I say no, it might be the final straw. Dad and I barely have a relationship as it is." There was a pause on the line. When Jasmine spoke again, her voice was gentler. What kind of relationship is it really if it only exists when you're useful to them? That's not family, that's a transaction." Her words hit home, but I still hesitated. "And what about Tyler? He's innocent in all this. He's just a kid who's graduating." "He's what, 22, hardly a kid. And from what you've told me, he's been raised to be just as entitled as your dad and Stephanie." That wasn't entirely fair, and I felt a need to defend my half-brother. "I don't know him that well, honestly. The few times we've talked one-on-one, he seemed okay. A bit spoiled, maybe, but decent. It's not his fault our parents have created this situation." I remembered Tyler at Christmas 2 years ago, showing me his photography portfolio with genuine enthusiasm. It was one of the few times we'd connected as siblings without parental interference. He'd seemed genuinely interested when I suggested some editing software he might like. Jasmine sighed. "Look, if you want to get him a graduation gift that's different, a nice camera accessory or something related to his interests would be appropriate. But funding an extravagant party that his parents are planning? That's on them, not you." She was right, and I knew it. But there was still the practical reality to consider. Even if I wanted to help, $3,500 is a lot for me right now. I just put almost everything I had into the down payment for this condo. I'm living on a tight budget for the next few months until things stabilize. Exactly. You've worked hard for everything you have. No one helped you buy that condo. No one supported you through college. You did that all yourself, and you should be proud. Don't let them guilt you into overextending yourself financially. As we continued talking, I pulled up my budget spreadsheet on my laptop. I was doing well at my job, but Boston's cost of living was high. Between my mortgage, condo fees, utilities, student loan payments, retirement contributions, and basic living expenses, I was comfortable but not extravagant. The $3,500 would mean either dipping into my emergency fund or putting off the kitchen renovation I had been saving for. "I could maybe offer $500, I said, thinking aloud. "That seems like a reasonable gift for a graduation." "That's more than generous," Jasmine agreed. "And if they're not happy with that, it says more about them than you." After we hung up, I sat with my thoughts for a long time. The reasonable part of my brain knew Jasmine was right. The emotional part still feared the consequences of saying no. Would this be the final break in our already fragile relationship? Was I willing to accept that possibility? I remembered something my therapist had told me during a particularly difficult period after college. You can't control how others respond to your boundaries. You can only control whether you set them. Those words had helped me navigate professional challenges, romantic relationships, and now they seemed applicable to this family dilemma as well. As I got ready for bed that night, a strange calm settled over me. The decision wasn't easy, but it was becoming clear. I couldn't control whether Dad and Stephanie would understand or accept my position. I could only be honest about what I was willing and able to do. And pretending I could afford something I couldn't wasn't going to help anyone in the long run, least of all me. Tomorrow I would call them back with my answer. Whatever happened next would be beyond my control. All I could do was speak my truth and hope that somewhere beneath the entitlement and manipulation, there was still a father who loved his daughter enough to hear her. 2 days after the initial call, I had settled on my response. The anger had cooled, replaced by a steady resolve. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say, hoping to keep the conversation productive rather than emotional. With a deep breath, I dialed Dad's number during my lunch break at work, stepping outside to a quiet corner of the office courtyard. "Dad, it's Emma. I've been thinking about your request." "Oh, good, I was just about to call you. The caterer needs an answer by tomorrow." His tone was casual, as if we were discussing a minor favor rather than a substantial financial request. "I've given it a lot of thought," I began carefully. "I want to support Tyler's graduation, but $3,500 is more than I can manage right now. I recently bought my condo, and my finances are pretty tight with all the associated expenses." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Emma, this is important. It's your brother's graduation." "I understand that, Dad. And I'd like to contribute $500 toward the party. That's what I can afford right now." I kept my voice steady, professional, the same tone I used when negotiating with project managers at work. 500, his voice rose in disbelief. That barely covers anything. The appetizers alone cost more than that. I'm sorry, but that's what works with my budget right now. I also plan to get Tyler a personal gift, I added, hoping this might soften the blow. We're not asking for handouts here, Emma. Dad's voice had taken on an edge I recognized from childhood arguments with Mom. This is about family responsibility. Your brother is graduating from college. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. I bit back the reminder that my own college graduation had been equally singular, yet hadn't warranted a country club celebration. I understand it's important, Dad, and I'm offering what I can. I thought you were doing well at that tech company. Don't they pay you enough? The implication that I was either lying about my finances or mismanaging my money stung. My job pays well, but Boston is expensive and I have financial responsibilities. The down payment on my condo took most of my savings. I was determined to stay calm and factual. Hold on, Dad said, and I heard muffled voices in the background. Of course, Stephanie was there, probably listening on speakerphone the entire time. Emma, it's Stephanie. Her voice was tight with barely contained irritation. I don't think you understand what this means to Tyler. He's worked so hard and everyone is coming to celebrate. Your father and I have already committed to the venue and caterer. I'm happy for Tyler's achievement, I said sincerely, and I'm offering to contribute what I can afford. $500 is insulting, she snapped, dropping all pretense of warmth. If that's all his sister thinks he's worth, maybe you shouldn't bother coming at all. Stephanie, that's not fair. I struggled to maintain my composure. My offer isn't a reflection of what I think Tyler is worth. It's simply what I can afford right now. You've always been selfish, Emma. Dad's voice returned heavy with disappointment that once would have crushed me. Always thinking about yourself first. You know, when your mother and I divorced, I tried to maintain a relationship with you, but you were so difficult. The revisionist history was stunning. I had been the one making the effort for years, calling regularly, sending thoughtful gifts, attempting visits that were often rescheduled or cut short. That's not true, Dad, and you know it. My voice wavered slightly, the professional facade cracking. It is true, Stephanie interjected. You've never really been part of this family. You show up for an hour at Christmas, bring some impersonal gift card, and then disappear back to your life in Boston. Now, when we ask for your help with one important family event, you can't even do that. The unfairness of this characterization made my chest tight. I had spent years trying to maintain a connection despite their indifference. The gifts I selected for Tyler were always thoughtful based on the few interests I knew he had. Last Christmas, I had given him a high-quality camera strap for his photography hobby, not a gift card. I'm sorry you feel that way. I managed falling back on the conflict resolution techniques I'd learned in management training. But my financial situation is what it is. I can contribute $500 to the party, and I'll get Tyler a separate graduation gift. Well, that's not enough. Dad's voice was hard now. If you can't support your family properly, then don't bother coming to the graduation at all. Tyler won't miss you. He barely knows you anyway. The words were calculated to hurt, and they found their mark with precision. I felt tears threatening, but blinked them back, grateful this conversation wasn't happening in person. Is that really what you want, Dad, to uninvite me for my brother's graduation because I can't pay what you're demanding? What I want is a daughter who understands family obligation. Clearly, I don't have that. The silence that followed was heavy with decades of unspoken hurt, disappointment, and missed connections. I see. I finally broke the silence, my voice surprisingly steady despite the emotion churning inside. If that's how you feel, I'll respect your decision. Please tell Tyler congratulations from me. I'm sure he'll be devastated. Stephanie's sarcasm was cutting. Don't worry, we'll manage without your insulting contribution. Goodbye, Stephanie. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call before either could respond, then sat on a bench in the courtyard, phone clutched in my hand, struggling to process what had just happened. Had I just been disowned over $3,500? The thought was so absurd it would be laughable if it weren't so painful. All those years of trying to maintain a relationship, of making excuses for their behavior, of hoping things would improve, reduced to a transaction they found insufficient. As I sat there, a strange feeling began to replace the hurt relief. There was something clarifying about having the dynamics so nakedly exposed. For years, I had been trying to earn love and approval that perhaps had never been available to me. Now at least I knew where I stood. I walked back to my office, straightened my shoulders, and returned to my work. If family was defined by financial contribution rather than love and respect, perhaps it was time to redefine what family meant to me. 2 days of silence followed. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid my empty apartment, where thoughts of the confrontation kept replaying in my mind. I fluctuated between certainty I had done the right thing and waves of doubt. Had I been too stubborn? Should I have found a way to meet their demand, just to keep the peace? On Wednesday evening, as I was cooking dinner, my phone buzzed with a text message. I expected it to be Jasmine checking in, but instead saw Tyler's name on the screen. My heart raced as I opened it. "Hey, Emma, just wanted to say thanks for the graduation gift. The laptop is awesome and will be perfect for job hunting after graduation. Looking forward to seeing you at the ceremony." I stared at the message in confusion. I hadn't sent Tyler anything yet, certainly not a laptop. I had been planning to order him a portfolio case for his photography, but after the blow-up with Dad and Stephanie, I wasn't sure if the gift would even be welcome. After a moment of hesitation, I called Tyler directly, something I had rarely done in the past. Our communication had always been filtered through Dad and Stephanie, and I realized with a pang how little I actually knew my half-brother. "Emma, hey." Tyler's voice sounded genuinely pleased, which only increased my confusion. "Hi, Tyler. I just got your text thanking me for a laptop, but I think there's been some mistake. I haven't sent you a graduation gift yet." There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, that's weird. Dad told me yesterday that you were getting me a new MacBook Pro for graduation. He even showed me the model online, said you had ordered it already." My confusion quickly transformed into understanding. "Tyler, I'm sorry, but I didn't order you a laptop. I haven't purchased any graduation gift for you yet." "Oh," his voice fell. "That's awkward. Dad was pretty specific about it. Said you wanted to support my photography and graphic design." The manipulation was breathtaking. They had told Tyler I was giving him an expensive gift, presumably planning to purchase it themselves, and claim it was from me, probably assuming I would ultimately agree to their financial demand. "Tyler, there's something you should know." I hesitated, not wanting to drag him into the conflict, but feeling he deserved the truth. "Dad and Stephanie asked me to contribute $3,500 to your graduation party. When I said I could only afford $500, they uninvited me from your graduation." "What?" The shock in his voice seemed genuine. "They never said anything about that. They just told me you were excited about my graduation and were getting me the laptop." He paused. "Wait, they uninvited you. Can they even do that? It's at the university." "Well, they made it clear I wouldn't be welcome at the party afterward." "That's messed up, Emma." Tyler sounded genuinely troubled. "I want you there. It's my graduation, right?" Something warm unfurled in my chest at his words. Despite our limited relationship, he wanted me present for his milestone. "There's something else you should know," Tyler continued. His voice lowered as if he was ensuring he wouldn't be overheard. "This isn't the first time they've done something like this." "What do you mean?" "Last year they told Grandma Wilson that you refused to chip in for Dad's surprise 50th birthday party. Said you were too busy with your fancy Boston life to care about family celebrations." I was stunned. "Tyler, they never asked me about Dad's birthday party. I didn't even know there was one." The hurt of being excluded from such an event was eclipsed by the realization that they had been actively damaging my relationships with extended family. "Yeah, I figured something was off. They do this kind of thing a lot, telling different family members different stories." He sighed. "The whole graduation party thing is kind of ridiculous anyway. They've gone way overboard. The budget is over $10,000. $10,000? I repeated, astonished. That's A lot for a graduation party. Tell me about it. It's embarrassing, honestly. Most of my friends are having backyard barbecues with family. Mom's insisting on this huge event at the country club with a professional photographer and custom decorations. It's not even about me at this point. It's about her showing off to her friends. This insight into Tyler's perspective was revelatory. I had assumed he was as entitled as his parents enjoying the lavish attention. Instead, he sounded uncomfortable with the extravagance. I'm sorry, Tyler. I didn't know. Not your fault. Look, I want you at my graduation regardless of what they said. The ceremony is at 11 a.m. at the university auditorium. You don't need a ticket for that part. Are you sure I don't want to create more family drama on your special day? I'm sure. You're my sister Emma. We might not know each other well, but you've always been nice to me, even when Mom wasn't exactly subtle about keeping us apart. His words touched me deeply. Despite everything, we had a connection, however tenuous. Then I'll be there, I promised. Good. And don't worry about an expensive gift. That laptop they mentioned costs like $2,000. That's crazy for a graduation present. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen processing this unexpected turn of events. The manipulation ran deeper than I had imagined, extending beyond just this incident to actively poisoning my relationships with other family members. But amid this disturbing revelation came an unexpected bright spot, a genuine connection with my brother, independent of our parents' influence. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope for at least one family relationship. Tyler and I might have a chance at building something authentic, even if my relationship with Dad and Stephanie was potentially beyond repair. On graduation day, I drove the 3 hours from Boston to the university, a mixture of anxiety and determination churning in my stomach. I had texted Tyler that morning to confirm I was coming, and he had responded with a thumbs up emoji and the location of his post-ceremony meeting spot. There had been no communication from Dad or Stephanie since our phone confrontation. The university campus was bustling with excited families, everyone dressed in their Sunday best, carrying flower bouquets and balloon arrangements. I had brought a modest bouquet of sunflowers and a card containing a gift certificate to a professional photography supply store. It wasn't a MacBook Pro, but it was thoughtful and within my budget. I found a seat toward the back of the auditorium, scanning the crowd for Dad and Stephanie, but not seeing them. The ceremony was typical graduation fair speeches about bright futures and changing the world, the dean reading names as students crossed the stage to receive their diplomas. When Tyler's name was called, I clapped enthusiastically, feeling a surprising surge of pride for this young man I barely knew but was connected to by blood. After the ceremony, I made my way to the fountain where Tyler had said to meet. I spotted him first, still in his cap and gown, surrounded by a small group of people, including Dad and Stephanie. Dad looked older than I remembered, his hair now more gray than brown. Stephanie was immaculately dressed as always, her blonde hair perfectly styled, gesturing animatedly as she spoke to an older couple I recognized as her parents. Tyler saw me approaching and broke into a genuine smile, waving me over. "Emma, you made it!" All heads turned in my direction. Dad's expression flashed from surprise to something unreadable before settling into a tight smile. Stephanie's face hardened visibly. "Congratulations, Tyler," I said, handing him the flowers and card. "I'm really proud of you." "Thanks for coming," he said, giving me an awkward but sincere half-hug. "Everyone, this is my sister Emma." "Half-sister," Stephanie corrected immediately, her smile not reaching her eyes. "From Richard's first marriage." "We've met before," I said politely to Stephanie's parents, who nodded with the vague recognition of people who had indeed seen me at sparse family gatherings over the years. "Emma," Dad finally spoke, his tone cautious. "We didn't expect to see you today." "Tyler invited me," I replied simply. An uncomfortable silence fell over the group, broken when Tyler's grandmother asked him to pose for a photo with his diploma. As the family reorganized for pictures, Stephanie approached me, maintaining her smile for any onlookers. "I thought we made it clear you weren't welcome," she said quietly, her voice pleasant but her eyes cold. "Tyler wanted me here. It's his graduation." "And what about the laptop you promised him?" she asked, raising her voice slightly so others nearby could hear. "He was so excited when you told him about it." I realized with clarity what was happening. She was publicly putting me on the spot, expecting me to either deny the gift and look bad or be forced to comply with their manipulation. I never promised Tyler a laptop, I said calmly, loud enough for those nearby to hear. In fact, I only found out about this supposed gift when he texted to thank me for something I hadn't given him. Tyler, who had been posing with his grandparents, turned at the sound of raised voices. Mom, stop. I already told Emma I knew about the mix-up. It's fine. What mix-up? Asked an older man I recognized as Dad's brother, Uncle Robert. He had always been kind to me on the rare occasions we'd met. There's no mix-up, Stephanie insisted, her composure slipping. Emma promised Tyler a MacBook for graduation, and now she's backing out. Actually, I said, maintaining my calm, what happened was that Dad and Stephanie demanded I pay $500 for the graduation party. When I said I could only afford $500, they uninvited me. Then they apparently told Tyler I was buying him an expensive laptop, which was news to me. A ripple of awkward murmurs spread through the family members close enough to hear this exchange. Dad stepped forward, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment, possibly both. Emma, this is hardly the time or place for this discussion, he said tersely. I agree, I replied. I came to celebrate Tyler's achievement, not to argue about money. Always the victim, Stephanie muttered, just loud enough to be heard. Richard, I told you she would make a scene. She's always been jealous of the attention Tyler receives. That's enough, Stephanie. Uncle Robert intervened unexpectedly. The only one making a scene right now is you. Stephanie turned to him in shock. Excuse me? You heard me. Uncle Robert's tone was firm, but not unkind. This isn't the first time you and Richard have pulled something like this. You did the same thing with Richard's birthday party last year, telling everyone Emma refused to contribute when she wasn't even invited. I was surprised by Uncle Robert's defense and the revelation that he knew about their manipulation. Dad's face had gone from flushed to pale. That's not true, Robert, Dad began, but his brother cut him off. Save it, Rich. We've all seen the pattern over the years. You pushed Emma aside when you remarried, and you've been rewriting history ever since. He turned to me. I should have said something years ago, Emma. I'm sorry. The public airing of family dysfunction was exactly what I had hoped to avoid on Tyler's graduation day. I glanced at him apologetically, but to my surprise, he didn't look upset. If anything, he seemed relieved, as if a heavy secret had finally been brought to light. Maybe we should continue this discussion later. I suggested, trying to salvage the situation. No, let's get it all out now, Stephanie said, her voice rising further. Since we're being so honest, why don't you tell everyone how you've barely been a part of Tyler's life, how you moved to Boston and forgot all about your family? Mom, stop. Tyler's voice was firm. That's not true, and you know it. Emma has always sent birthday gifts and tried to stay in touch. You and Dad are the ones who kept scheduling things when she couldn't come or cutting visits short. Stephanie looked at her son in shock, clearly not expecting him to contradict her narrative. Tyler, you don't understand. She's always been difficult even before you were born. Actually, another voice joined the conversation, and I turned to see Aunt Lisa, Dad's sister-in-law. We've all noticed how you and Richard treat Emma compared to Tyler, and frankly, it's been uncomfortable to watch for years. The situation was spiraling, with years of unspoken family observations suddenly finding voice. Dad looked around at his extended family, seeming to realize he was losing control of the narrative he and Stephanie had carefully constructed. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. We've always treated Emma fairly. We can't help it if she chose to move away and distance herself. Richard, Uncle Robert's voice was quieter now, but no less firm. You need to stop. We all know about the gambling debts. We know why you're really throwing this extravagant party you can't afford. A stunned silence fell over the group. Tyler looked at his uncle in confusion, then at his father. Gambling debts. Dad, what is he talking about? Dad's face had gone ashen. Stephanie's eyes darted around the group, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. Your father has been struggling with online poker for years, Uncle Robert explained gently to Tyler. He borrowed money from several family members, claiming it was for your college expenses. When we found out it was going to gambling sites instead, he promised to get help. This party, the country club, the expensive catering, it's all part of keeping up appearances. I stood in shocked silence, this revelation casting years of family dynamics in a new and disturbing light. Had the $3,500 demand been about more than just the party? Was their financial situation more precarious than they let on? "Is this true?" Tyler asked his father directly. Dad couldn't meet his son's eyes, which was answer enough. "And you knew about this?" Tyler turned to Stephanie. "Don't take that tone with me," she snapped defensively. "We've given you everything, Tyler. Everything. While your father wasted money, I made sure you never went without. The least you could do is have a graduation celebration worthy of our family's standing in the community." The raw truth was finally emerging. The party wasn't about celebrating Tyler's achievement, but about maintaining a facade of prosperity and status, despite financial problems of their own making. What had begun as a simple graduation celebration had devolved into a public family reckoning. As I looked around at the shocked and uncomfortable faces of extended family members, I felt a deep sadness, not just for myself, but for Tyler, whose special day had been overshadowed by these long-buried family secrets. In the aftermath of the graduation day revelations, I felt a crushing guilt for my role in what should have been Tyler's celebration, becoming a family confrontation. Though I hadn't intended to expose the family dysfunction so publicly, I had been part of the collision course set in motion by years of unaddressed issues. The following morning, I sent Tyler a text. "I'm so sorry about yesterday. Can we meet for coffee before I head back to Boston?" To my relief, he responded quickly. "Sure, Jones Coffee Shop on Main Street at 10. The coffee shop was a cozy, student-frequented place just off campus. I arrived early, nervous about the conversation ahead, and claimed a quiet table in the corner. When Tyler walked in, he looked tired, but managed to smile when he spotted me. "Tyler, I want to apologize," I began after we'd gotten our drinks. "Yesterday should have been about celebrating your achievement, not family drama." He shook his head. "It's not your fault, Emma. Honestly, a lot of what came out needed to be said. I've suspected something was off with Dad and Mom's finances for a while. The big house, the luxury cars, but then random arguments about money for basic things like my textbooks." He stirred his coffee pensively. "Uncle Robert called me last night, filled in more details. Apparently, Dad's gambling got really bad after his promotion 5 years ago. He has access to more money, but also more stress." "I had no idea," I admitted. "We've been so disconnected." "That's not on you either," Tyler said firmly. "I've seen how they've kept you at a distance. When I was younger, I didn't understand it. I thought maybe you just weren't interested in being part of the family. But as I got older, I started noticing patterns, how Mom would always find reasons why your visits needed to be short or rescheduled." His perception surprised me. "You notice that I'm more observant than they give me credit for." He gave a half smile. "The photography helps with that, teaches you to really see things as they are, not how you want them to be." There was a maturity in his assessment that touched me. This wasn't the entitled, oblivious brother I had imagined from a distance. "I wish we'd had more chance to know each other growing up," I said honestly. "Me too." He hesitated. "But maybe it's not too late. I mean, we're both adults now. We could build our own relationships separate from their issues." The suggestion caught me off guard, but in the best possible way. "I'd like that, Tyler." "Good." He looked relieved. "And by the way, I love the gift certificate. Photography World has some great lenses I've been eyeing. Way more useful than a laptop for what I actually want to do." We spent the next hour talking about his photography ambitions, his plans after graduation, and my work in software engineering. The conversation flowed naturally without the awkwardness I had expected. As we were finishing our coffees, Tyler brought up the inevitable. "I haven't talked to Dad and Mom since yesterday. They left right after the whole blow-up. Grandma Wilson said they had a huge fight in the parking lot." I winced. "I'm sorry about the party. I know they had big plans." "Actually," Tyler looked a bit sheepish, "I called the country club this morning and canceled the reservation. I told them there was a family emergency." "You what?" "The deposit is non-refundable, but at least they won't be charging the full amount. I can't imagine where they were going to get the money anyway after what Uncle Robert revealed." He shrugged. I'm organizing a backyard cookout at my apartment complex instead. Just friends and whoever from the family wants to come. That's more my style anyway. I was impressed by his decisiveness. That sounds much better and more authentic. Exactly. He paused. You're welcome to come if you want. No pressure, especially after everything. I'd like that, I said sincerely. Before I left to drive back to Boston, I made a difficult but necessary decision. I called my father. The conversation was brief and strained, but I laid out clear boundaries. I would maintain a relationship with Tyler, independent of them. I would not be contributing financially to family events beyond what I could reasonably afford. And most importantly, I would not tolerate manipulation or attempts to damage my relationships with other family members. Dad was defensive at first, then resigned. Whether this represented genuine acceptance or merely tactical retreat, only time would tell. I ended the call feeling both drained and strangely empowered. For perhaps the first time I had advocated for myself without guilt or uncertainty. The next few months brought significant changes. Tyler and I began texting regularly, building a genuine sibling relationship based on mutual interests and respect rather than obligation. When he mentioned wanting to explore job opportunities in Boston after graduation, I offered my spare bedroom while he interviewed and apartment hunted. My relationship with Dad remained distant, but less fraught. Once the financial deceptions were exposed, he seemed to lose the energy for maintaining the elaborate facade. Stephanie and I maintained a cold civility on the rare occasions we interacted. I had accepted that some relationships couldn't be forced into health, and that was okay. With the help of a skilled therapist, I worked through the complex emotions surrounding my family history. I learned to see the patterns of emotional manipulation that had shaped my perceptions for years, and to recognize when guilt was being used as a control mechanism. Most importantly, I learned that family is defined by love and respect, not by blood or obligation. The healing wasn't linear. There were difficult holiday gatherings, uncomfortable conversations, and moments of doubt, but there were also new connections formed. Uncle Robert and Aunt Lisa became unexpected allies and supports. Cousins I had barely known reached out to rebuild relationships. And most precious of all, Tyler and I developed the sibling bond that had been deliberately stunted for so many years. A year after the graduation confrontation, Tyler moved to Boston for a job at a marketing firm that valued his photography skills. We met for dinner weekly, exploring the city's restaurants and cultural offerings together. During one of these dinners, he confided that Dad had finally entered a program for gambling addiction after hitting a financial rock bottom. It's still day by day, Tyler explained. Mom's having a hard time adjusting to their scaled-back lifestyle, but they're finally addressing the real issues instead of just keeping up appearances. I was genuinely glad to hear it without feeling responsible for either their struggles or their recovery. That detachment was hard-won and healthy, a sign of the boundaries I had established. Looking back on that initial demand for $3,500, I can now see it as a pivotal moment, the catalyst that ultimately led to truth and authenticity, replacing pretense and manipulation. By refusing to participate in their financial and emotional schemes, I hadn't just protected my bank account. I had begun to reclaim my sense of self-worth. Family relationships should be built on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine care, not on financial transactions or obligation. Sometimes standing firm against unreasonable demands isn't selfish. It's the first step toward healthier connections for everyone involved. The road to authentic family bonds may be challenging, but it's infinitely more rewarding than maintaining a facade of harmony built on manipulation and unspoken resentments. What about you? Have you ever had to stand your ground with family over unreasonable financial demands? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you found my story helpful or relatable, please like and subscribe for more real-life family stories. Remember, establishing healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for genuine relationships. Thank you for listening, and I hope my journey offers some guidance if you're facing similar family challenges.